This interview is conducted as part of the Oral History Project of the Newton Free Library with Miss Hinkle by Elisa White, conducted on May 8, 1984 at the Newton Corner Library in Newton, Massachusetts. Were you born in Newton?
No, I was born in Texas, and I lived in Arizona till I was 10 years old, and then the family moved to Newton in 1924.
What were your family's reasons for moving to Newton?
My father, who worked for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, was a buyer of cotton. Those at that time went into tires. Nowadays it's entirely different. And when we came to the Boston area, we had heard that the Newton schools were especially good at that time. So that was the reason we picked Newton.
Could you tell me a little bit about your education?
Yes, I came to Newton, I think I was in the 4th grade, and I went to the Bigelow School, which at that time had 8 grades. So I went through the 8th grade at Bigelow, and then I went to Newton High School from there. And our class was one of the last 9th grade classes to go to the high school, because about that time they changed over to the system of junior highs. And other parts of Newton, there were a couple of junior highs, but the Bigelow only went through the 8th when I was finishing there.
And that was in Newton Corner?
That was in Newton Corner.
Okay. Now, I understand that you were a librarian at Newton Corner Library in the children's section.
Yes, in the Boys and Girls Library, which is around the corner.
Could you tell me how you got involved with that?
When I came out of Simmons, graduated from Simmons with just an MS, and living in Newton, I applied for the Newton Library, and at that time, Newton didn't pay very well, and Simmons didn't really approve of their graduates taking a job in Newton, but being sort of the tail end of the Depression, you were lucky to find, if you found a job, you took it, so that when we started off, I remember with maybe a 3 weeks vacation, which was not normal. Most people had 2-week vacations, but that was sort of compensated because we didn't get paid very well. But when I started, I did adult work in the art department, just sort of looking after files, believe it or not, stereopticon slides, which they sent quite a collection of at that time. Then after about 2 years, there came an opening in the children's section, so I took over and started up. So I'd never had, except elementary, children's work when I was going to Simmons. When I first started, and for a good many years, there wasn't any certification, for instance, so that you could get paid a lot better paid through experience than you can nowadays. For instance, nowadays when applying, they will ask for a master's.
The work day was 9 to 5, or?
Let's see, we worked about 39 and a half hours maybe, and the schedule was 9 to 6. If you worked at night, you would say, might be 1 to 6 and 7 to 9. Some people in the branches, 10 branches, and some of the branch people would work a morning, afternoon, and the evening all in one day, which I'm glad we didn't have to do that later. But of course, people in those, when I first came out of college, people, 40-hour week was the general thing, you know.
The wages so that was considered like 10 cents an hour and 30 cents?
The children, the kids would get 10 cents an hour. When I started on the hourly basis, I got 50 cents an hour.
So was that more so than that?
That was, well, from graduating from the college. Nowadays, if anybody went to work for 50 cents,
it would be unheard of.
I don't know what its equivalent is today, you see.
Was there a minimum set like that?
I don't think Newton was too structured in those. When I started working, they could hire people without, many of the people never had library training at all, but they'd learned it, come in with other backgrounds and could work.
So
that
if they didn't have the experience like that you had of a college education,
Yeah.
they would tend to be paid lower?
Yes,
like
that's
that?
right, yeah.
Okay.
But in my day, experience
Was really the key.
did help. We did we get the benefits of other people that with more education through our experience, and I believe they call it, I've heard that people call it the grandfather clause.
Oh, right,
you know,
okay.
longevity
Yeah.
in a way.
Uh-huh.
But experience counted a
Great
lot.
deal.
I've forgotten. It was in the late mid-40s, I think, that Massachusetts started having certification for librarians, and then the standards were
Went up
and
and perhaps the pay too.
Yeah. But Newton didn't pay compared to some of the other towns. Brookline paid better, for instance, in library than Newton did.
Oh, really?
I don't know about nowadays.
Do you know why? Or just
I don't know. Newton Library, one thing that we've had trouble with, and financially, and buildings and so forth, is the nature of Newton, which has a village mentality, if you want to call it that. So each village has a feeling for their own part of Newton. They're Newtonites,
right.
and that's one reason they have such a controversy over closing the schools, because they still have that neighborhood. And so that Newton Free Library does spread itself thin, you see, because they've got so many buildings.
Right, like branches.
Now we have, since 2.5 went into effect, then some of the schools and some of the branches have closed.
Uh-huh.
And for instance, the smaller branches like Lower Falls and Upper Falls might have been open 3 days a week. Or we'll say now one of them's 2 days and the other's 3 days. And so the librarian, there would be one person that do the 2 places. So its schedule is arranged so we did take quite a big cut.
Wow.
When the 2.5.
2.5 came in.
Yes.
What prompted you to go into library?
I always enjoyed reading and things to do with books.
Uh-huh.
And it just seemed like a good job to, and in 1936 there weren't as many jobs around as there would be, and I had no bent for business.
Uh-huh.
I just thought I'd enjoy it,
Uh-huh.
which I have done.
And you work mainly in the children's section?
Mainly with children.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's the reason.
And you worked 40 years then?
48 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
But I really hated reading.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, Ms. Hinkle, it was very, very
Wow.
nice to have this interview with you, and I really appreciate it.
Well,
I think
thank
that's
you.
most helpful.
You made it easy.